do as much as you can to reduce fees and expenses, because that's nothing but a drain on your portfolio return. Secondly, don't make the mistake of following the crowd. That is, don't assume that what might be an attractive investment today or yesterday will be an attractive investment tomorrow. And thirdly, diversify. Have a diversified portfolio. Make sure that you have representation across all of these major global markets. If you make a bad investment, but you have all your own money at stake, and it goes down by 10%, you lose 10% of your money. That might be painful, but it's not catastrophic. If you made an investment, same investment, but you borrow half of it and you put up the other half yourself, and it goes down 10%, now you're seriously injured, because the borrowing has to be repaid and what's left for you is a lot less. So the system as a whole became too highly leveraged, such that even a small decline in values caused a huge decline in the little bit of equity that was there. Individuals have taken on just too much debt. Individuals, in effect, made the same mistake that these financial institutions, which, as I said a moment ago, put on too much financial leverage. You could argue that individuals did the same thing, that instead of letting the equity build up in their homes, they borrowed on it for what? Well, for another cup of coffee or a trip to Tahiti, or they consumed their own feedstock by borrowing or taking down that equity and then spending it. Credit cards became massively available to people, and people somehow thought, well, that's like free money, and if I can borrow it, I'll spend it, without working out the math of, well, eventually that catches up with you and it's a dead end. We're going to go through a lengthy period of very slow growth. So people who have a historical sort of notion of, well, I grew up in the 80s and the 90s and the early 2000s, that notion is going to be a false notion. We're not going to return to that growth. We're going to be subjected at best to a slow growth trajectory. And, you know, if some of these things that we talked about become critical, that could even cause us to turn down again and have periods of negative growth. We went through this binge. You know, it's a little bit like you drink too much, there's nothing you can do, you've got to wait out. You're going to have the hangover, and you've got to suffer through that, and then eventually the hangover will go away. Let this period pass, and then we can begin to go back to more sensible leverage, sensible amounts of leverage, less consumption and more savings at the consumer level, and that'll get the economy back on track.